I'm Chance Dorland, and this is the Spurs Insider, our new weekly NBA podcast from expressnews.com, brought to you today by the law offices of Thomas J. Henry. And as is the plan each week, I'm joined now by San Antonio Express News Spurs beat reporter Jabari Young. But Jabari, as is a little different than the plan we've been going the last few weeks, we have actually some very good news to report about the Spurs. How about that?
Yeah, man. Winning solves everything, right? And that's always been the motto or the feeling in the NBA. You know, you can lose as much as you can, but at the same time, if you start to win, especially when it counts right now, and the Spurs trying to make a playoff push, then it solves everything. You know, the hard part is can they keep it going, because they need to keep it going if they plan on making the playoffs. They're still in some dangerous territory, so they got to make sure that they take care of their part, and that's winning basketball games. And so far, they're doing that.
So, yeah, Spurs on a winning streak. Who's hot? Who is really allowing this to happen? Who needs to maybe step up? And who needs to be hot for this playoff, hope to stay alive?
You know what? Obviously, we can't ignore what LaMarcus Aldridge is doing. 19 of the 28 points in the fourth quarter. He single-handedly willed the Spurs to a victory. I mean, that was just impressive what he did. I mean, that man just came and just took it, and you got to, all respect in the world to him. I mean, he is just really playing phenomenal. The big question about LaMarcus Aldridge and, around the NBA, and I think this has been something that's been questioned throughout his entire career is, okay, he'll get you a basket, he'll get you some games, but can he will you in the playoffs? And that's the question. And I think right now, so far, he's doing that. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. I mean, listen, this I don't think I've ever seen him play like this, and I'm talking about, when they need a bucket, he's getting it. When they need a rebound, offensive rebound, he's getting it. He's playing good defense. This dude is playing phenomenal right now, and I don't think you can downplay that. So obviously he's the main reason why this team is playing the way that they're playing. Offensively, they need him. They need him. And the other thing is that I think quietly, he's always been one of those dudes that has shown leadership through an example. And that's what he's doing right now. And I think that's been phenomenal. Danny Green, the fact that, he's resurrected this team defensively. And I know we'll talk about the lineup in a minute, but he's just really taking that leadership. There's a lot of times I see Danny, during huddles or during timeouts, he'll gather the group and he'll really take charge, letting guys know, hey, listen, don't forget the defensive principles that we have for this particular game. That leadership that Danny Green is showing has been just, it's been amazing, and I think that needs to continue. And I think Rudy Gay, when we said who needs to be, I think he's showing flashes of, trying to get to that Rudy Gay that we all thought was going to be here from the start. Now, everything's an adjustment period, and I think Rudy has definitely, did his best to adjust. But we're at this point of the season right now, he didn't play in the second half. I believe it was against the New Orleans Pelicans and the win over the Pelicans. And then he comes back and has a phenomenal game against a win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then he plays okay against the Golden State Warriors, who were depleted. Let's not forget that. But, I think defensively, Rudy has shown a willingness, and talking to people, in the team, that's what's allowing him to stay on the court, that defense. We all know Greg Popovich takes defense seriously, and we know Rudy Gay can score 20 in his sleep. That's no problem. But it's a defensive effort that they want to see. I think they've been seeing that, tied a season high with 4 blocks and went over the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think if he continues to need to be on the defensive end, and offensively, he's going to get what he gets. But defensively, if you can get that Rudy Gay that's playing defense, then I think that the Spurs feel more comfortable having him on. Greg Popovich, I should say, feels more comfortable having him on the court. And when you have a Rudy Gay that's engaged both ways, I think that can only help this team down the road.
So to talk more about this winning streak, the most recent, the one that you just kind of used a few words that people will recognize, maybe not for the Spurs recently, but, things like impressive. It is impressive, and it's a fun win. It was great when they beat the Cavaliers some weeks ago, especially since they lost to the Warriors just before this to pull out the win. But it doesn't count as much as you might think.
Nah, listen, it right now it counts in the win column for the Spurs, and that's all they care about. Okay, that's what matters to them, is that they win basketball games. And at this point in the season, you'll take every fair fight that you can get. You know what I mean? Like that. If it's a fair fight, then okay, you do what you got to do. But if it's not a fair fight, and even Greg Popovich said last night, it wasn't a fair fight. You know, the Warriors did not have their troops. You know, and then they had obviously missing Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson didn't start from the very beginning, and then Draymond Green goes down in the second half. He didn't play in the second half because of a pelvic contusion. So, listen, at this point, the Spurs will take it. Believe me. And nobody in that San Antonio locker room is feeling sorry for the Warriors, because did nobody give a damn about the Spurs?
As you mentioned, no one gave a damn about the Spurs, and they continue to not give a damn about the Spurs.
Exactly. They do not care about the Spurs. They don't care about their injury problems. They're going into there and they're trying to win. Okay, and that's the bottom line. So, with that said, it's a win. You don't look too much into it. You don't say, oh, okay, well, now we got Golden State's number. No, that's not true. But you just take the wins how you can get them. And the Spurs, to their credit, got that win, and they kept their winning streak alive. And it wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong. It was. Golden State took them. They had a lead, in the fourth. Golden State took them to the limit. They closed out the third. They took a lead. They closed Spurs had about an 8-point deficit in that third quarter. They didn't shoot the basketball well. I think they finished about 4 of 15 or something like that in the third quarter, shooting the basketball. And all of a sudden, Golden State's able to, get about a 2-point lead heading into the fourth quarter, and everybody's sitting up there looking like, "Wow, are you serious? Are you telling me that a team without Draymond Green playing in the second half, no Kevin Durant, no Steph Curry, no Klay Thompson, they're going to come in our building and beat us?" And so a 5 for 20 in the third quarter, I should say, but they close it out. And again, that fourth quarter was just, phenomenal for LaMarcus Aldridge. And now you took care of business on your home court. You don't have to worry about the Warriors again unless you play them in the, in the playoffs. So you got that out of the way. So everything is gold now.
And especially the fourth quarter, because we know that's been the Spurs' kryptonite as of late. So very impressive all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, when you're able to go out there and you held the Warriors to 415 in the fourth quarter, you finished 9 of 10 of 19 in the fourth yourself. And you just took care of business on the defensive end, and they've been able to close teams out in the fourth quarter. A big difference for them. Remember something. I remember in Golden State when Greg Popovich mentioned how, the team is just, they can't seem to, they're allowing too many points in the fourth, and, they can't hold on to leads. Well, listen, last 4 games, they have one of the best defensive ratings in the league. And they're closing teams out in the fourth. They held the Pelicans in the fourth. They held the Timberwolves, and now you hold the Warriors, and now you get the job done. So it's just building momentum heading into an important closeout for this home stretch. You got to finish the job. If you can go undefeated in this home stretch, I really feel comfortable saying, hey, I think you got yourself a playoff a spot. Now it's not going to be official, but feeling confident that when you come back home, you can win basketball games, and that confidence is just that's amazing. Because remember something, this time last week, Spurs were sitting 10th in the NBA, okay, 10th, and in the Western Conference, I should say 10th, and people were losing their minds. Oh, they're not going to make it. And so now, after that win over the Warriors, they got themselves a 5 spot. Now they just got to keep it up.
If they can keep the win streak alive, that'll look good for the playoffs. Something else, Kawhi Leonard, that evergreen topic that we keep discussing. What is new, Jabari? What's going on with Kawhi?
Same old. It's just a bottom line is that they're trying to really just get him back, and he is still making an attempt to try to get back, may try to seek some clearance soon, but it's just a frustrating thing. And I think we're at that point of the season where I think San Antonio, the Spurs, Greg Popovich, and the Spurs are really going to think about whether it's worth it or not. And the fact that they haven't did it.
We talked about this earlier because we're hitting that deadline right now.
Right, yeah. And the fact that they haven't did it already just allows me to think that they still believe that there's a chance No pun intended, but there's a chance.
Well, I mean, that interview that you had with Popovich a while back, where you asked him specifically to be a little bit more detailed, and he said, "I'm ready to tell you what I just told you," and that was that he would be, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, surprised if Kawhi ended up coming back.
Yeah, I mean, and right now that's continuing to hold true, right? That he would be surprised, but I think we all would be. Listen. You have to understand that there needs to be some clearance sooner rather than later, because you want to know who your troops are going to be. You want to know who you got going into a playoff battle. You want to know who you got finishing a war right now, the war of the season to get into the playoffs. You know what I mean? So, it's at that point, because if you're a player on that roster, you don't want to concern or keep answering questions about Kawhi Leonard. You want to keep it going.
And as a fan, I mean, don't you think most people would probably, even if it was no more Kawhi this season, they would just say, okay, at least we know and we can stop worrying about it?
Yes. You have no idea the amount of, that amount of frustration, how that it would just level off and just kind of start to decrease, because now he's not going to be there. And now who you got going into this war or this battle of the playoffs. And so, if it happens, then phenomenal. But if it doesn't, then that's a completely different story. But right now, there's nothing new to report so far. It's just a matter of he's trying to still get back, and they haven't listed him out for the season yet. And so that's a little bit of good news. The bad news is they haven't really, there's nothing else to report.
The bad news is that they haven't listed him out of the season yet. I mean, that's really the good news and the bad news.
Yeah, exactly. The good news is they haven't listed him out of the season yet. The bad news is they haven't listed him out of the season yet. So, you know what I mean? We'll keep it going, man. And hopefully within the next, few days to week. And like I said, I'm completely shocked, because as I reported, I thought it was.
Yeah, you were sticking to your guns, man, for the longest time, and we had that turnaround. It looked like, despite the speaking you did with Popovich, that maybe he's coming back, and then just now, and it's so ironic because now that they're actually doing a little better, not so much heat over on the topic of Kawhi Leonard's return.
Yeah, and I'm still sticking to it. I mean, obviously it was an early date that he was supposed to come back, but I still said that there was this month, and I still think that this month is a possibility. It's just, if it's by April, it's done, because at that point you only got like a handful of games. So, but I still think this month is a possibility. So, we still got a couple more days left, about another two weeks. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, not so much new on the Kawhi Leonard front, but the exact opposite of that would be a new starting lineup. Tell me about that.
Well, since the Orlando Magic game, Greg Popovich reinserted Danny Green in the starting lineup, took out Pau Gasol. And I wanted to give it a few games to see whether or not, how legit that was. And it seems they have something going right now. I mean, when you win 4 straight games, that's important. And so if you look at the defensive rating numbers, right, last 4 games since they started that new starting lineup, right, defensive rating has an 87.7. That's second best in the NBA. Okay, 87.7 points per game that they're allowing to opponents. Second best in the NBA. The offense is at about 105 points, which is better. It's still not up at the top echelon of teams, but it's better than what they were. You know what I mean? They're not scoring. They're right at that middle, maybe below. So it's better, you know what I mean? Because their offense before was not, it wasn't clicking the way that they want to. But we all know that they hang their hat on the defensive end. And so in that respect, it's working. It seems to be paying off. And so by putting Danny Green in there, you have more spacing. And you allow LaMarcus Aldridge to have a little bit more space to work down low, and you're not clogging the paint up. Pau Gasol and LaMarcus, you have 2 bigs in there, then that it limits the space, and so now you have 2 dangerous shooters on the floor, and Patty Mills and Danny Green. You got a defender in Kyle Anderson who's playing very well on the defensive end and can make plays. Okay, and then you have a DeJounte Murray where he can score up the dribble, get to the point. So they have people that they can, that lineup seems to be working for spacing wise, and everybody seems to do something well. And so, and also you don't lose anything, having Kyle Anderson start at the 4 position, because he can hold his own at that position, playing defensively as well as make plays. And he is usually, where Kyle Anderson is, he's not down there on a block. He's not down there in the post. He's usually outside on a perimeter. So that takes the defender with him, and it just allows LaMarcus Aldridge more room to operate. So now if you try to double as an opponent, LaMarcus has couple of options that he can go to, and even if you reset, or you got an open 3 from Patty Mills or open 3 from Danny Green, and they seem to be hitting that as well. So it's just it seems to be something that's clicking for them right now. And if it ain't broke, you can't fix it. So I'm expecting Greg Popovich to ride out with this unit. And talking to Manu Ginobili and asked him if he hopes that they keep the starting lineup. He says it's good for stability. It's good for, guys know when they're going to play now. Danny Green says, listen, he hopes it sticks too. You know what I mean? Right now they're winning. And when they're winning, you kind of ride it out. And that's what they got to do. They got to ride it out and see how far this particular unit can take them. But right now it's working. So if you're Greg Popovich, I don't think you mess with it.
And then, of course, as we've mentioned time and time again, not only when you lose a game, your opponents oftentimes win. So you're falling behind and they're leaving you behind. So the Spurs now trying to get out of this hole that they've kind of dug for themselves. What a change from just a handful of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. They got this winning streak now, so this is looking good. But obviously, they're in a disadvantaged position now. And we talked about this in the recent weeks, talking about what the playoffs might look for them. And obviously, the worse record that they have now compared to before means less friendly playoff standings for the first round. So you think people should be hoping for the Blazers for the first round? You think that's what the Spurs need, right?
For my own selfish reasons, absolutely. And I only say this because, in this league, you always want to see those players who left one place to go to another.
We talked about this before.
Yeah, you're rooting for Oklahoma City. You're rooting for Golden State to play each other maybe in the second round, right? I mean, that just would write itself. Well, I think the Blazers and the Spurs would write itself. You're the Blazers. You're a young, hot team right now, hottest team in the NBA. You kind of rebounded from a slow start, and Damian Lillard is MVP caliber player. CJ McCollum is playing really well. The Blazers are rolling. And so if you're the Spurs and you're LaMarcus Aldridge, this is a team that you left. You're LaMarcus, you left the Blazers to come to San Antonio to win. Now, obviously, injuries to Kawhi Leonard is derailing that a little bit, but you're having an MVP season as well. Damian Lillard versus LaMarcus Aldridge, Portland versus San Antonio. It doesn't get any better than that. LaMarcus has to go through his former team to get to the second round, and this time, he has to go to Portland to start it off. I mean, from a journalistic standpoint, from a fan standpoint, from a basketball standpoint, it writes itself. I mean, it can't get any better than that. You want
Make
drama.
Jabari's job easier. Pray for Blazers versus the Spurs.
It won't be easy, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch. The drama,
Make Jabari's job fun. Yeah, I got you there. That makes sense. Yeah, that's a little better than easier.
Yes. The drama. The drama. I'm in it for the drama. Listen, it's the playoffs, right? No, you don't want no boring game. I want to see the drama, okay? And so I think everybody should be rooting for Blazers versus Spurs round. And guess what? There is no clear favorite to this, okay? The San Antonio is not – I don't think they can be the favorite going into this series. And I don't think Portland has that much of an edge going into the series. I think the Blazers have the potential to beat them, and I think the Spurs have their own potential to win that series. But it would just – I think that would be an epic series. I think that's a series that can come down to a Game 7. Imagine this, okay? Everybody listen to this podcast for a minute. I want you to stop. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Imagine LaMarcus Aldridge in Portland for a Game 7 against his former team. Imagine the last 5 minutes of a fourth quarter, the game tied 90-90, okay? Lillard versus Aldridge. Who pulls it off in the end? I mean, how much better can that get? I mean, it would have everything. It would have the theater type feel to it. It'd have the drama, okay, the action. It'll have the storyline. It'll have everything. It just doesn't get any better than that. I'm rooting for Blazers versus Spurs first round. Call me selfish, whatever, but that's just picture that. Picture that for a moment. Picture it. You'll be glued to your TV. It's nonstop drama. And what else do you want in the NBA during the playoffs? You want the drama. You want the action. You want the close games. You want it. I want it. So let's go get it. Blazers, Spurs, first round. That's what I'm rooting for.
And speaking of Mr. LaMarcus Aldridge, just a few moments ago, you mentioned MVP. You think MVP for LaMarcus, that might be in the cards?
Well, full disclosure, the way that the MVP, the way that the voting works is that, the NBA teams, they select the media members who they want to vote. So obviously the Spurs in Portland, I had some votes, but here in San Antonio, I haven't had the blessing of the Spurs yet. So obviously I'm not probably going to be able to vote on it this year. But I say that when you look at the ballots, when it's all said and done, I think LaMarcus Aldridge should be in that top 4. And I know it's usually top 3, but I think his name he should have more than just one vote. Okay. This man is, especially if the Spurs make it to the playoffs and they maintain like that seeding from anywhere from, 4 to 6. Okay. Because you can't give MVP to a guy or a team that's 8th in the league, So, if they maintain that edge, I see no reason why you can't consider Lamar. He's probably not going to win it. Okay, then obviously the award is going to go to James Harden. I mean, James is having a phenomenal season. You can't take anything away from him. But the man deserves some consideration. Given all that he's done, given the fact if you think about it, for most of the season until after the All-Star break, the Spurs were sitting at that 3 seed for a long time with only Kawhi Leonard for 9 games. And LaMarcus has been that guy to carry him. I mean, you got to look and think about what the man is doing right now. I mean, again, we just mentioned how, he basically willed the Spurs to that playoff victory, right? Finished with his 24th double-double this season, and 14th time this season that he had 30-plus points. I mean, he's doing everything that he possibly can to make sure that this team is winning. And ever since the Spurs, ever since he had that off game, which came against the Houston Rockets, right? The Spurs are, LaMarcus is averaging 30.3 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.3 blocks. And the Spurs are 4-0 ever since he came off of that, 1 game rest, 1 game, sitting out that 1 game against the Houston Rockets. Okay, I mean, phenomenal stats. For the month of March, just looking at the month of March, the man's statistics speak for themselves, okay? He's averaging 24 points in the month of March, 9.7 rebounds, 2.2 assists, okay? And the Spurs about, 4-3 in that span, okay? Which they should have won against Golden State before. So they should have a better record. But I mean, he's just playing some phenomenal basketball, okay? And he's just helping his team. I mean, 22.7 points he's averaging, okay? That's the most he's put up that's the most he's averaged since he, got here from Portland, okay? And that's his last season in Portland. He was averaging about 23. Now he's averaging about 22, bringing in about 8, the little rebounds are down, but he doesn't need to rebound all that much, but his scoring is up. Field goal percentage, okay? Shooting 50, over 50% field goal percentage wise. So the man is just right now. Other than Anthony Davis, I think, and Anthony Davis is a center in a lot of respect, but I think LaMarcus he's the best power forward that he's playing that way right now, and I think he deserves his amount of credit, and I think that credit should be considered for MVP. Again, not going to win it, but you got to consider him.
Excellent. And then wrapping up here, Jabari, of course, we have the rest of the schedule. You said that you think the Spurs, or at least they should, or maybe they will, go undefeated on these next home games, but then there's another road trip that's approaching. So tell me about that.
Yeah, well, you got the Washington Wizards, you got the Utah Jazz coming in. That's the 2 tough teams. Okay, first of all, Utah is to be respected. Okay, they're to be respected, and the Spurs, that's going to be a tough one for them to win. I mean, you're talking about a team, as we're taping this podcast, they're the second hottest team in the Western Conference behind the Portland Trailblazers. Have won their last 9 games, as we're taping this, sitting 6th right now in the West, and they're dangerous. Donovan Mitchell, that's a bad boy. I mean, at that team, they're playing defense. And we mentioned the team that has the second best defensive ratings in the last 4 games, which is the San Antonio Spurs. You know who has the first? The Utah Jazz. The Washington Wizards. You know, arguably they were one of the hottest teams in the Eastern Conference, and having won, you know, they won 2. 5-5 their last 10. They kind of slid a little bit, but, you know, still a team that has put together a phenomenal stretch ever since John Wall went down. So they're to be respected as well. So 2 tough games to close out, and then you got to go to Milwaukee, and then you got to see Washington again, this time in Washington, and this time by that point, John Wall can be back. So as much as we're, you know, ecstatic about how the Spurs are winning, it doesn't get any easier. Okay, it remains hard. You know, the drama continues. It's still tough. It's still going to be a tough stretch for the Spurs. But like I said before, you take care of home court these last 2 games and take some momentum going out on the road. It's going to be tough. Milwaukee's playing for their playoff lives. Giannis Antetokounmpo is a matchup nightmare for them. Jabari Parker is back now in Milwaukee. He wasn't here the first time when they played. It's going to be hard for the Spurs to win that game in Milwaukee at that. And then you got to go again, like I said, to Washington. And then you got to come back home. And guess who's waiting for you when you come back home? Oh, it's just the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets. No big deal, you know. So it's going to be tough. It's a tough stretch. You still got to face Portland, and you still got to face New Orleans Pelicans the last game of the season, which can be a game where if you lose that game, I mean that can be the difference between either making a playoff or, you know, a seeding. So the drama doesn't stop. But right now the Spurs are hot themselves. And, you know, they got to keep their momentum going. And if they play the way that they know how to play, if they play defense the way that they've been playing these last 4 games, then, you know, I think they should be able to take care of business. Right now, I think they control their own fate. They got to make sure that they keep control of their fate by winning games. You can't control what everybody else does. You can control what you do. And if you win the way you're supposed to win, you play defense, okay, you don't slip offensively, we'll see how it goes.
All right, Jabari. Well, there is some excitement now on the podcast as we look at a possible bright future ahead, at least bright from where we were a week or 2 ago. So things are looking up for the time being. Let's see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
And, of course, big thanks, as always, to my weekly guest, San Antonio Express News Spurs beat reporter Jabari Young. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see what happens next week.
Talk to you later, Chance. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks again to San Antonio Express News Spurs beat reporter Jabari Young for joining me for today's slightly more positive episode of the Spurs Insider, our new weekly NBA podcast from expressnews.com, brought to you today by the law offices of Thomas J. Henry. For expressnews.com, I'm Chance Dorland.